Hi, it's John Ivankoe with JPMorgan. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Starbucks session here this morning. Joining with Starbucks is Pat Grismer, the company's Chief Financial Officer, who I believe will start us off with some slides.
Thank you very much, John. I do appreciate the opportunity to participate in today's session. Before we do get started with our fireside chat, I do want to provide a quick update on our sales recovery in our two lead growth markets, the U.S. and China. So I'm going to first share my screen. So if you'll bear with me, get that set up here. And hopefully you can see the slides. I will be speaking to these slides that will soon be posted to our investor relations website. So I'll lead with our standard cautionary language, as I will be making some forward-looking statements. But starting with the U.S., our sales recovery is sustained, with comp sales improving from -14% in July to -11% in August, on track to achieve positive comps by the end of our fiscal second quarter in 2021, as we previously outlooked. We've noted at the bottom of the slide some two-year comps to normalize for some variability in prior year lab. The recovery, as you can see, is unfolding fairly steadily. Worth noting that now more than half of our stores in the U.S. have at least limited seating available. And we've seen that as we've progressively opened our ordering and sales channels, from drive-through to entryway pickup to in-store ordering and seating, comps have improved, and they're continuing on that path. Looking ahead, we expect three key initiatives will fuel our future recovery in the U.S. First, the deployment of handheld POS at the drive-through. Second, the rollout of curbside pickup where we have convenient parking. And third, today, the launch of Stars for Everyone. We are very pleased with the upward momentum in our U.S. business, but we still have a ways to go to fully recover sales in the U.S. And the overall operating environment remains somewhat uncertain. So prudently, we foresee another 6 months of recovery, as previously outlooked, but we're very pleased with our progress thus far, and we're very optimistic for the future. So moving then to our second lead growth market, which is our business in China, you can see that our business there is approaching full sales recovery. We posted flat comps in August, up from -10% in July. Those numbers include a 4 percentage point benefit from a temporary VAT exemption, so we've also shown the numbers without that temporary benefit. We are still on track to achieve positive comps, excluding the VAT benefit, by the end of our fiscal Q1 in 2021, as we previously outlooked. Like the U.S., we've noted here at the bottom of the slide two-year comps, which show a steadier recovery and turned positive in August. Our future recovery enablers in China include, number one, the accelerated development of our convenience store format, Starbucks Now. Number two, increased digital customer engagement, which has grown through ongoing improvements to our digital platform, including the recent introduction of Starbucks Rewards multi-tier redemption. And third, ongoing leverage of our digital partnership with Alibaba, which includes delivery. Now, there are some headwinds to our full sales recovery in China, and those are continuing lower levels of traffic at travel and transportation hubs, as well as city center locations that are impacted by reduced inbound international travel. So I'm going to wrap up my opening remarks with some reminders about some upcoming key dates. We are set to report our fourth quarter and full year earnings on October 29th, at which point we will also provide guidance for fiscal 2021. Now, that will be a 53-week fiscal year for Starbucks instead of the normal 52 weeks, as happens every 5 or 6 years. We will highlight the impact of the 53rd week when we do provide guidance. Looking further ahead, we will host our biennial Investor Day on December 9th, which will obviously be conducted virtually. So I am going to now stop sharing my screen here. We've reached the end of the slides. And John, at this stage, really happy to take your questions.
Yes, thank you. So the August comp of down 11 in the U.S., I assume I can ask you a very specific question. How many stores, if any, are still closed? And can you tell me again the percentage of stores that have limited seating? You said I think you said half of stores have limited seating?
Yes, so currently about 3% of our company-owned stores in the U.S. remain closed. Those are concentrated in central business districts in large metropolitan areas. And yes, more than about 50% of our stores that are open do have some form of seating.
And the stores, more than 50% have seating. 57% of your stores have drive-throughs. So, I mean, would it be more likely that a drive-through store would not have its seating open, or or is that just really is that like a market like California, for example? Is this kind of suggest? Of course, where I'm going to get is, does seating mean higher sales performance?
Yes. In drive-throughs, more often than not, we do have seating available, which is important because there are customers who would prefer not to wait in the very long drive-through lines. They can come into the store, place their order, and collect their order and be on their way. Or if they like, they can sit and stay where we have limited seating available.
Yeah.
With respect to the drive-through locations, they're performing really well. They are already comping positively. The cafes that are concentrated in our central business districts, they're continuing to comp negative. Those that are open, but as I mentioned before, a large number of those remain closed. But all of that is reflected in the improving sales comps that I've shared.
And how do you define CBD or urban? Obviously, I mean, I think there could be a lot of kind of cross definition here. But what percentage of your stores would you define as CBD, which would, for obvious reasons, take the longest to recover, getting full mobility back, subway traffic, other things like that?
Yeah. The best way to think about it is, as you mentioned before, about 60% of our company-owned stores in the U.S. are drive-through. The remaining 40% are cafes. Of that 40%, about a third are in central business districts. Not all of those are closed, but a fair percentage are, and those represent the 3% of the total company-owned system that remain closed at the moment. But what I think is important to highlight is that through the pandemic, we've seen customers change their behavior. So as increasing numbers of our customers are working from home, that's why we have low levels of traffic in central business districts, but we are seeing very significant increases in customer traffic at our suburban drive-thrus. Customers have changed their behaviors. They are eager to reestablish their routines and find some measure of normalcy. They're visiting Starbucks closer to home. They're tending to visit a bit later in the day, and they're spending more when they do come. So as customers have modified their behavior, we've adapted to accommodate them.
Thank you. So again, just a very quick math. So 60% of your drive-through stores are positive. 60% of your stores have drive-thrus, and that cohort is positive. Maybe more specifically, that would suggest something like comps are down somewhere like 25%, maybe more for the non-drive-through stores. I mean, is that kind of within your expectations? At this point in their recovery, and I'm going to use the word self-help, but I mean, lack of a better word. Is there anything that you can do to kind of basically pull up that lagging cohort, that you feel that is within your control as opposed to, basically the government kind of opening, people just getting back to work?
Here's how we think about it. There will be a cohort that will, for some period of time, be under pressure until the environment normalizes. We don't know when that will be. We're not waiting for that. And so we are rapidly innovating in order to capture new demand, new occasions that we didn't have before that tie to how customers are currently leading their lives, which is why we have moved quickly to open up new channels of distribution at our existing stores, primarily in the suburbs, because there's significant latent demand, there's unmet demand. And so as we've seen customers change their behavior patterns, we've moved swiftly in order to capitalize on that, recognizing that for a cohort of our stores, it may be some time before we see volumes return to where they were before, and we're not waiting around for that. And then also, as we mentioned back in June, some stores in central business districts that were already lagging in their performance in the current environment aren't going to deliver a level of performance that will warrant maintaining those operations. And so many of those stores form part of the roughly 400 stores that we said we would accelerate a closure on in the next 12 to 18 months. And that process has started. So we are rapidly shifting our business in response to shifting customer behavior in the near term and for the long term. And of course, another important part of that is the rapid innovation around our convenient retail store format, which is the Starbucks pickup store, where we're looking to accelerate the pace of development in the coming year. And that will be focused in these urban centers. I
mean, there was a letter that was sent to landlords, basically kind of Starbucks is, obviously, big tenant, but, you're not getting, the walk-by traffic, the commute traffic, what have you, that a lot of stores would have contemplated when you sign those leases. Are you having success in that, that 40% of non-drive, let's just assume that that's the case. The 40% of non-drive-throughs, or maybe that 1/3 of CBD is the 40% is kind of getting, significant rent reductions. I'm sure when a landlord says, hey, when Starbucks leaves a street, that the value of that street goes down. I mean, our landlord's kind of recognizing that and, giving you the kind of terms that basically make a marginal decision, one that in fact that you'll stay because they appreciate that you have value to everyone around you.
Well, John, you're absolutely right. We recognize the strength and the power of our brand and the prominent position that we have in retail. And so we are seeing success in those conversations with landlords, but it's not necessarily in the way that you might expect or that you've alluded to. That is, we're not seeing short-term rent abatement. What we are seeing is more favorable terms for existing locations and importantly for new locations, because remember, we're still growing. Even though we're accelerating the closure of stores, we have a very robust new store development program focused on our drive-through assets, largely in the suburbs, and we're able to bring to bear the current environment to secure favorable rent terms or lease terms for those new locations, as well as for, again, existing. So to give you some examples of the types of concessions we're seeing, we are securing additional parking spots. That's very significant because, in fact, we see curbside pickup as an important enabler, as I mentioned before, of our longer-term recovery. Already, we're in about 800 stores with curbside pickup. We will more than double that number in the next couple of months. We're also securing early termination rights in our new leases, which is important because circumstances, as we've learned, can change, and we need to have the flexibility to exit as the situation warrants. And then finally, we're also writing into our current leases and new leases provisions for rent relief in the event of new disruptions comparable to what we've experienced in the last several months. We didn't have that in our leases before. So I think we've been able to capitalize on the current environment in a way that is very helpful to our current operations and to our future operations, but not necessarily in the form of rent abatement per se.
Okay, yes, no, thank you. I want to read that. I'm flipping back and forth in my notes. This conversation is great, by the way. I didn't know we were going to be able to get into such specific detail. Let's see. Sorry about this. So the three initiatives, in the U.S., handheld point of sale, curbside, and storage for everyone. So let's focus first on the handheld point of sale. Is that someone that's standing in the drive-through? Is that that there's an additional person in the store? So kind of explain what that is and how much of a theoretical throughput enhancer that could, of course, be. And is that an all-weather type of an event, or it's like just kind of like the practical solution across your store base?
So all great questions, Sean. We are currently in the process of refining our model for handheld POS. So we're currently piloting and refining our model through the testing that we're doing so that we can rapidly deploy this. But absolutely, we expect this to be a game changer for us in drive-through. Bear in mind that when Starbucks was first launched as a concept, it was not designed for drive-through. We added drive-through as consumers were looking for more convenience. But the fact is that given the profile of our menu, with beverages, they're handcrafted, to customers' individual specifications, down to how many pumps of syrup they want, how much ice they want, what kind of milk they want. Increasingly, customers are pivoting to plant-based milk, and we're able to provide that to them. But given the complexity of the builds, the wait times in the drive-thru line can be long. The other thing we've seen is that with how customers have changed their behavior in this pandemic, as I mentioned before, we're seeing tremendous demand at our drive-thrus in the suburbs because people are working from home. They're taking a break, in the morning, maybe in the afternoon again. They're bringing the family with them. We have a significant increase in the average order size, and with that, very high ticket growth, and you saw that in our third quarter results. We're continuing to see that. We do expect that will moderate over time, but that does put pressure on the drive-thru experience. And so we see handheld POS as an opportunity to collect orders sooner in the line so that we can start the production of those handcrafted beverages and be prepared to fulfill those orders more quickly than we are today. And we know from our experience, because we do measure this, that when we improve drive-through time, we reduce balking, we reduce line rejection. So we're better able to capture the demand that is out there. The last thing we want to have happen is someone drive up to Starbucks, see a long line, and continue on their way. That's another reason why curbside pickup is so important because it provides customers another option. I don't want to get in the drive-through line. I've placed my order via my mobile phone. I can conveniently pull into a parking spot that is designated for pickup, and partners will bring my order out to me. That is working beautifully. That's taking pressure off the drive-through, and it's accommodating more of that customer demand.
Yeah, and ironically, I mean, I would think where you have drive-throughs is probably where you could most likely have curbside. So it's like there's a lot. I mean, it's just like and so it really does. So it's going to go to 1,600 stores. Curbside will go to 1,600 stores relatively soon. Do you have a potential number?
It'll go to about 2,000, John. Excuse me. It'll go to about 2,000 stores in the coming months here. So we're the team. I have to give the team a lot of credit. They're moving very rapidly. Adapting to customer behaviors, rapidly innovating and deploying with tremendous discipline and urgency.
Okay, I mean, 2,000 is a huge accomplishment in such a short amount of time. But how many could have it, in your opinion? Have you guys gone through the site by site on that?
It's early to say. So in the near term, we can see our way to 2,000. A lot of it has to do with the real estate and where our units are situated and the viability of having convenient parking spaces. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, I think handhelds. I mean, again, this is my opinion. I wonder if you study like how Chick-fil-A, for example, does handhelds. I mean, they don't have just one person doing handhelds. They have somebody that like not only can you order, but you actually pay, and and so you can kind of do a lot of other things, and they kind of done that. I don't know how much their drive-through capacity went up with handheld, but you can see it. How much faster it is. I don't know if that's kind of who you benchmark, or if it's fair to talk about our call.
Yeah, John, our team has gone to school on everybody in the category to learn best practices and rapidly apply them. Of course, we have a very complex technology stack that includes our loyalty program. And today we're launching Stars for Everyone. So we have to be very careful, thoughtful, and deliberate about how we introduce even more complexity to that stack to ensure that we execute with excellence, both for our partners as well as our customers.
And do you think is Stars for Everyone an enhancement, or do you think that's a potential game changer?
It is a game changer. That's how I think about it. Because, as we have researched ways of capitalizing on the enormous success of our Starbucks Rewards program, time and again, what has surfaced in our consumer research is that the number one point of friction, what prevents customers who love Starbucks from joining the program, is the requirement to prepay on a stored value card. So with Stars for Everyone, we are removing that barrier. And now all customers who use their mobile phone to place orders, who register as a member of Starbucks Rewards and register a credit card or a debit card, can pay with that credit card or debit card, not a stored value card, and earn stars. Now, as you would expect, the stars earning rate is lower. So the current program with the stored value card is 2 stars per dollar. With Stars for Everyone, it's 1 star per dollar. But it's a reward nonetheless, and it provides customers with a way of accessing value that we know is quite important. And we do expect, as we've observed with Starbucks Rewards previously, that when customers make the move and we're able to build that relationship with them and bring to bear our personalized marketing, their frequency increases and their average spend increases. And frankly, what I think is going to happen in the case of Stars for Everyone is that once customers become accustomed to how it facilitates their overall experience, many will choose to migrate up and move to the existing.
Yes, exactly. When there's
they can earn 2x.
Yes, definitely. And so it still is credit debit based. It's not that cash is not an option, or did I misunderstand that?
I don't know. I believe cash still is an option. So you can, the way the app has been designed, at the time you place the order, you can select your tender, which would include a registered debit or credit card, or you can indicate cash and scan at the register, is how I understand it works.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But again, I mean, some percentage of your customers, I see it every day, do pay with cash. I mean, do you say what that number is? The percentage of your transactions that are still currency?
I don't know that we've released that before, John.
Okay, yeah, I know, but it's not a small number. I mean, in that person, by definition, you couldn't have a card before, because that's or at least have you have it on the phone. Okay.
So what I would say is that the overriding insight underpinning continued enhancements to our Starbucks Rewards loyalty program, whether in the U.S. or in China, is flexibility. Because remember, last year we introduced multi-tier redemption here in the U.S. We launched that at the start of the summer in China, and that provides customers so much more flexibility in terms of how they can earn and use their rewards, and that has contributed to increased spend with our rewards members. The other thing I want to highlight, because I know that this question came up. In fact, I think you may have asked the question on our last earnings call, is in relation to our 90-day active rewards members. And we did see, over the course of the pandemic, that number come down. It had been, I think, at 18.7 million at the beginning of the pandemic, and then at the end of our third quarter, it dropped down to, I think, just over 16 million.
Yeah, we have the tables in this.
Yeah, so at the end of August, it was back above 18 million. So very quickly, as we've reopened for business, as we have opened new channels of distribution, we've been able to rebuild our 90-day active Starbucks Rewards member base, and we expect that upward momentum to continue now with a new catalyst, Stars for Everyone.
Interesting. And in terms of communicating these changes, a couple of things. I mean, Starbucks use of traditional media. I mean, your marketing spend, over the course of 25 years has gone up, and you've obviously had a lot of benefits from that going up. Starbucks didn't use to even be on television. Now, obviously, it is. I mean, what is kind of your attitude towards traditional and digital media, and or are you taking this is basically an opportunity to kind of rethink all of your marketing spend and make every dollar be re-earned, if you will?
Well, I think our marketing team does an extraordinary job of ensuring that our money is spent as efficiently as possible. And of course, it is the strength of our Starbucks Rewards loyalty program that provides us with the opportunity to be more, I would say, more efficient than a lot of others within our category. That and our brand stature. Our brand naturally attracts a lot of attention, a lot of promotion through various channels when we have new news around new product launches or new program launches like Stars for Everyone. That attracts a lot of immediate attention. And that's why we talked about this before. When you look at the construct of our P&L, our marketing spend, is about 1%, whereas others in the category are in the mid-single digits. And we see the opportunity to continue to realize efficiencies, not only through our loyalty program-oriented marketing, which includes the personalized marketing that we do as we build these relationships with our customers, but also through social media and traditional media. We have an opportunity to continue to revisit our programs to ensure that those marketing dollars are spent as efficiently as possible. But we are not backing away. In other words, we're not looking to spend less. We're looking to continue to spend what we feel is a healthy amount of marketing, and to make sure that that is spent in the most effective and efficient way possible.
Thank you for that. Before, just in the 30 seconds we have before the call, you kind of pointed out that you're wearing a pumpkin spice latte sweater, and I got you this. I have my Starbucks Florida cup, Miami cup. How important are new products, and is pumpkin spice something is this a gift that's continuing to give? Just the time to launch new products. How important with food, with obviously the Impossible Sandwich that you have. Starbucks is very much of a new product. Driven brand. Many brands have significantly cut back their menu offerings. I think you've only added. So just talk about the importance of new products and the place within that, in an environment that still is, very changed and difficult to operate.
Yeah, well, I think, for Starbucks, new product innovation continues to be very important to how we create excitement for both new and existing customers to drive visitation. But at the same time, there's no substitute for the return of a fan favorite. So yes, I am wearing my pumpkin colored sweater today in honor of the fall, the fact that this is pumpkin spice season, and how excited I am about our relaunch at the end of August of our pumpkin spice latte, and my own personal favorite, the pumpkin cream cold brew. I think it just goes to show you that in the current environment, customers are looking for a taste of something, familiar, something that helps them feel that they've returned to a sense of normalcy. And that's what Starbucks as a brand represents for many customers. And that's what a product like pumpkin spice represents for so many of our customers as well. And so we could not be more delighted with how we're able to leverage these significant assets that are unique to Starbucks in ways that help to continue our recovery and underpin our optimism around full recovery of the business.
Okay.
I did want to come back quickly to the numbers because I have them now here in front of me. At the end of this is for Starbucks Rewards. At the end of our fiscal Q2, we were at 19.4 million 90-day actives in the U.S. At the end of Q3, that had dropped to 16.3 million, and at the end of August, we were at 18.7 million. So not quite to the 19.4 pre-pandemic, but you can see how quickly our Starbucks Rewards customers have come back. And we're seeing healthy numbers of 90-day actives. And like I said, today's launch of the Stars for Everyone is going to take that to a new level, and we could not be more excited about that.
And in the markets that have been reopened the longest, the Georgia, North Florida, what have you, Tennessee, for example. I mean, are these markets performing significantly ahead of kind of the markets that like a Michigan that's still been relatively slow? I mean, what kind of a market? You obviously understand the CBD, so we can kind of talk outside of that. But is the markets that's been open the longest performing the best? I mean, because the markets that have been open the longest, the consumers have a lot more choice, and people are acting quote unquote more normally, and aren't necessarily in the drive-through line with 20 other cars. Like, so there's kind of a lot of things. So it would be kind of an interesting dynamic to understand.
Yeah, John. So here's how I would talk about it. We have the ability to dial up and dial back our operations based on prevailing conditions in every one of the markets where we operate. And we have seen through this pandemic in cases like California, Texas, and Florida, where there were flare-ups, in the beginning or middle of the summer, where measures were taken that reduced traffic. We dialed back our operating protocols. But then as conditions improved, we dialed back up. And what I mean by dialing up and dialing back is what I mentioned by way of these progressive orders of sales. So from drive-through to entryway pickup to curbside to in-store ordering, sit and stay. And as we make our way across that spectrum, regardless of the market, we see sales improve because we're able to accommodate more customers for the type of experience they're looking to have. So it's more a function of what those prevailing conditions are. They can go up and down. And importantly, we have a new level of resilience that allows us to dial up and dial back our operations as needed. And, that choppiness and performance across the markets is embedded in the numbers that I shared in terms of how we progressed from July to August. And as I mentioned, the positive momentum continues.
Yeah, very interesting. Obviously, labor is the biggest cost at the store level. You're mentioning dialing up and dialing down based on various factors that you mentioned. Has the labor model changed in any way at Starbucks? Obviously, you've been very focused on at one point, you're drive-through only. You couldn't even come into a store. So obviously, that's a very different labor model than being able to come into a store and order. And it's a different labor model than having a cafe model where people are sitting down. So, how do you anticipate the labor model potentially permanently changing? And should we see, for example, labor hours be lower on a given level of sales based on some learnings that you've had from COVID? How significant could that be to your business?
Not significant on the labor side. And that's not to say that we aren't continuing to find ways to be more efficient. We're continuing to automate tasks, where we can. We're continuing to apply best practices to improve the efficiency of our operation. As I mentioned before, we're looking to unlock capacity at the drive-through. But, through the pandemic, we've had to add labor in areas like cleaning. And with the rollout of curbside pickup or handheld POS, that adds more labor to the store. But it's being done very smartly in a way that ensures we get a return on that investment. But given, the complexity of our menu that goes with offering handcrafted beverages that are customized to the specifications of each and every customer, we don't have the ability, like I think some others in our category who are looking at opportunities to simplify and rationalize their menu, because they can. We offer personalization, which drives a lot of menu complexity that is a source of competitive advantage because we're the only one who can do it at scale, backed by a loyalty program that keeps people coming back once they've found their favorites. So we're not going to walk away from that. We do expect that we'll get back to our pre-COVID efficiency overall. So we will find some efficiency opportunities. Those will be offset with new investments around opening up some of these channels, as I mentioned, but also our commitment to our partners for the long term and continuing to invest in their development and in their growth. And we are planning for investments like that in fiscal 2021.
Do you need to get back to previous ADs, even higher ADs, to get back to previous store level profitability?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do.
Yeah.
So that's why, John, what we said on the Q3 call was that, and I'll just focus on the U.S. business for a minute, but of course we have a whole global business.
I know we are flying, but we have so much to cover. I know.
So speaking of the U.S. business, we said that we would recover sales, meaning we would turn positive by the end of our fiscal second quarter, and that margin recovery would lag by a couple of quarters. That's for the reasons I mentioned, which is that we're investing in new areas and new channels to open up sales, and we're making new investments in partners, environmental sustainability, technology, all of the things that are important to our brand that differentiate us from the competition. We have never been shy about diluting margin in order to unlock long-term growth, and that continues to be how we think about the business.
Yes, understood. So let's shift, to China. I don't know how you guys were so close, even back in like January, February, to kind of like predict the recoverability and China comps. I don't know if there's a little bit of luck or just absolute genius in terms of you're getting so close to flat by the end of the fiscal year. So that was a very hard target to come as close to, as you did. So I mean, obviously, congratulations there.
I'll offer just a bit of insight on that. At the time we put together that projection, it was based on what we experienced with SARS nearly 20 years ago. So we did have experience in market with a decent number of stores that gave us some visibility to how the market might, evolve and eventually recover in response to a major disruption like a pandemic.
And your young experience, your China experience with probably couldn't have hurt that. I mean, because you said you probably have had an acute understanding of that customer and how they can kind of get back in touch, what have you. So anyway, that's amazingly well guided. So what's the opportunity from here? So excluding that, China's down 4% in August. The trend is, I mean, if I wrote that down correctly, so the trend is obviously improving, significantly. When do these numbers, kind of become definitively positive? And I want to talk about the state of competition. I mean, obviously, cost is kind of in the market. Luckin, I don't know if you want to talk about directly. It's like this was like the big threat to you that obviously wasn't what it was supposed to be. So there was obviously some things that happened there. How's the competitive environment, changed in China? And does this actually open or expand or widen your market opportunity relative to what you would have thought even 12 months ago based on what you'd achieved?
So let's first talk about the Starbucks business in China, and then we'll talk about competition. We could not be more pleased with how our business has recovered in China from a comp sales perspective, but then also importantly, in terms of how quickly the team was able to reinvigorate our new store development program. After putting new store development on hold for a period of 6 weeks or so, they very rapidly ramped back up, and so we do expect to open more than 500 units this fiscal year, which is, quite a monumental achievement. And as I mentioned before, the team is not only opening units with speed, but they're doing it with innovation, with new formats, including Starbucks Now and other innovative designs that continue to capture, the interests of Chinese customers. And we're using that as a vehicle to not only drive traffic with existing customers, but to welcome new customers to the brand, because as we open new stores, we're not doing it just in existing cities, but we're entering new cities. And so we're using our development program as a platform to broaden the reach of the Starbucks brand in the world's fastest growing consumer market. So we could not be more pleased with how well positioned we are and how well the team is executing locally in terms of recovering comp sales and driving new unit development.
And could you give us an update? I mean, I know 80% of transactions are actually consumed on premise in China. I mean, that was a tough obstacle. Could you remind us what percentage of the stores are at full capacity? Whether it's just the number of seats or the number of operating hours, and if that 80% is still holding true.
Well, John, I think the important thing, and I know you're aware of this because you've studied the market for years, China is a dynamic market. It is by no means a static market. And so as COVID has impacted the market, customers have changed. They've changed their behaviors. They have sought out experiences that are contactless. They were already, very digitally savvy. They're leaning increasingly into, those digital platforms, and we are evolving our offering to meet their demand. So contactless is number one. Number two is convenience, which speaks to, again, the slight pivot in our development program, continuing to open core stores with the beautiful seating areas to satisfy that type of occasion, but being there in a different format to satisfy a different occasion, sometimes for the same customer, but oftentimes a new customer. And so I think it is more about the fact that the market is dynamic. It is changing in response to COVID, and we are changing as a business in response to those new customer behaviors and preferences. Digital being, I would say, the most important thing.
So maybe 80% of transactions are no longer consumed on premise. I don't think you didn't give me a number, but I would assume that number is lower, than it was. But what percentage of your stores are kind of at full capacity now? Is that number approaching 100 in China? I think it was 70, if I remember correctly.
What I would say, John, is that we are far from full capacity because, remember, the business in China is different from the U.S. It isn't concentrated in the morning day part as it has been in the U.S. It's more spread out across the day.
I missed that question. But, meaning seating in hours. I mean, seating in hours been returned. I think it was at 70% of your stores before were at previous seating and previous hours. So not utilization, but I didn't ask the question correctly.
I'm sorry. I think we have about 1% of our stores that are currently closed. Those that are open are substantially, meaning more than 80%, back to normal seating. So we are operating at that full capacity.
And it is remarkable. I mean, it's like being in a parallel universe to see, China that can be, 80% of stores have full seating, and yet in the U.S. we're talking about 50, and even the stores that do have capacity are not like they were before. So what can we learn, from China, in the U.S. and I don't know, it sounds like, you have a very specific understanding about this virus. When can that be the U.S. in your opinion? And, can the U.S. consumer follow basically the pattern in what is, a much more dense country? And ironically enough, there's a lot of confusing things about how China has recovered so much and we're still, not, I don't want to simplify it, but we still haven't made the improvements that so many other countries have.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we won't see customers return entirely to their routines until there is a vaccine. We're not waiting for that. So what we've recognized is that we have needed to rapidly adapt our operating protocols to make our partners feel safe and secure to come into work and to make our customers feel safe and secure to come see us. And they are coming back. So I think what we're seeing is that people are feeling more comfortable because appropriate precautions have been taken to ensure the safety and cleanliness of the experience that we offer. And it just demonstrates how customers are yearning for that taste of normalcy that comes with a pumpkin spice latte or a cold brew, right? And we need to be there in support of the communities because we're an important, we see ourselves as being an important part of that healing process.
And Patrick, as unfortunately we're somehow coming on 40 minutes, can we talk about the organization, how Starbucks is actually a strong organization, how it can take advantage of market share? I mean, where the state of investments have been in technology and infrastructure, and people, just like, what you've cut, what you've maintained, and how just, speaking in terms of the organization and some of the changes that you made around Silo. And, I think some of the changes that Kevin made were underrated by the market in terms of how significant, that they were, kind of how you perceive, Starbucks in 21 and 22 versus maybe the organization that you joined.
Sure. Well, there's no doubt that some of the strategic initiatives you mentioned have been instrumental to I would say, the turnaround of the business prior to the onset of COVID. But those same changes organizationally have been instrumental to the strength of our recovery. And so what I would highlight is that through this transformation over the last 2 years, again, leading up to COVID, we've become a much more focused company, a much more disciplined company, a company with a higher level of organizational agility that has enabled us to innovate more rapidly. And now with the improvements we've made to our operation through COVID, we are a more resilient company. Yeah. And so, all of those things were very deliberate over the last couple of years on top of the specific business initiatives to drive different results was sort of a transformation of the company that has now given us new capability and I think a new mindset that is demonstrated through how rapidly and smartly we've been able to recover our business and underpins the optimism we have for the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. Look forward to seeing you soon. I wish we could do December 9th in person, but I guess that's just not a possibility.
It'll be virtual.
Well, I'll make sure I have 5 coffees during that meeting. But okay, talk to you soon, and thank you for that detailed update, and we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Tom. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.